That's two.
All right, everyone, welcome in to the first ever live instant review podcast. This is extremely exciting. We are all here on the screen here at the same time, and we are debuting a new era of this instant review podcast. You know that we like to discuss weekly NFL news, injury reports, fantasy football, upcoming game predictions, sports betting lines, and much, much more. But we're really going to take it to the next level. My name is Nicholas Hill, host of the Instant Review podcast, and I've never done this before, but let's just go around the box here and let everyone introduce themselves. Leon, go ahead.
Leon Tari on Instagram, Leon Tari on NFL news analyst, and we're just gonna have a lot of fun on Instant Review podcast discussing everything NFL based.
I'm in Connor Kennedy. Introduce yourself.
Hey, it's Connor. What's good? I'm really excited to live stream today.
Yeah. Last but not least, we got Oscar Arango.
How's everybody doing? Oscar Rengo. I'll be helping you guys out with injury report and fantasy tidbits.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. I hope you stick around. If you're watching us live, hit us up, down, give us a like, hit those comment sections. We would love to react to your comments while we are doing this show. Obviously, we're waiting here for the New Orleans Saints and Seattle Seahawks to play on Monday Night Football tonight. Jameis Winston versus Geno Smith, an interesting Monday night special. But we got to react to everything else that's happened in Week 7 because it's been an interesting week. Lots of blowouts. I think I saw heading into Sunday Night Football last night, the average point differential of victory was 20 points. So there was a ton of blowouts yesterday, but some of the blowouts were shocking to say the least. And to kind of begin on some of these top topics, Leon, let's get to our first topic.
So first big story of the night, Dearness Johnson in his first career start, 146 yards, 1 touchdown. Baker Mayfield's gone, Kareem Hunt's gone, Nick Chubb's gone, Odell Beckham gets hurt, the entire Browns offense is hurt, and this guy carried his entire team, broke tackles with Case Keenum as the starter, and the Browns are now above 500. So can the Cleveland Browns continue to find success even with these injuries?
Yeah, that's an extremely interesting question because obviously the Browns offense did pretty well against a decent Broncos defense the other night. Connor, I'll start with you. What do you think?
Sorry, what'd you say? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you your opinion on this Browns offense. Effectively, is the second team unit at this point. You don't have Baker Mayfield. You don't have either one of their top running backs. However, Dearness Thompson, ran for 146 yards on a decent Broncos defense, despite himself being a third-string running back.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things with a championship team is depth. And the Browns definitely show that they have depth, in that game. Obviously, their third-string running back really showed up, especially when their elite running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, couldn't perform. And Baker Mayfield wasn't able to play either. And, Case Keenum, he has some familiarity with the system from his time with the Vikings and Kevin Stefanski. And, he played pretty all right. He helped elevate this team to win. I think a lot of us were concerned about the Browns, especially after last week with all of their injuries. Like, it's just across the board. But, last week really proved that there's not all too much to worry about. And I think the Browns will pretty much coast to a playoff spot.
Whoa.
I don't know if I agree with coast to a playoff spot. I mean, they got to get really healthy, and there's a lot of stiff competition. I mean, they are perhaps – I don't think they're even a top half team in their own division when you look at the Bengals and the Ravens. And we're going to get into those teams here in a little bit. Oscar, I seem like you have a comment here.
I think I kind of agree with Connor. The idea of like this is definitely a next man up type of team, and they definitely stepped up. We've seen backup shine. Peoples Jones was a wide receiver that also didn't even play that game. So this is all full backups and reserves filling in, doing great. And just kind of you mentioned, like in their division, they're not the best team yet. This is a division that usually it's Steelers and Ravens, and they're really helped by the fact that the Steelers are not as good as they perennially are. But the Ravens are a really good team with Lamar Jackson. The Bengals kind of came into their own this weekend. So the Browns don't have exactly a clear path, but I'm wishing them a lot of luck. They definitely got to get healthy sooner rather than later, and I think they get a couple players back next week. Mayfield's got a shoulder injury. He should be coming soon. It's not anything that's going to be season ending, and neither is Kareem Hunt. So let's see. Hopefully they.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion of whether or not his injury should be season ending because whenever, because he's going to have to get an injury on that torn labrum. And
Right.
he's going to be out for a while whenever he does do that. But he's just going to try to tough it out to help the Browns try to secure a playoff spot, because I don't think they can make a playoff spot with Case Keenum. I know he's done it in the past with teams like the Minnesota Vikings back in 2017 when he led them all the way to an NFC championship game. But I don't think in the year 2021 with this offense, with the injuries, Case Keenum is going to be able to do the same for Cleveland. What is your opinion on this situation, Leon?
But I mean, they're even better than the Chiefs right now. The Browns are 4-3, and I do think they still will find continued success. I do think that they could even crack the wild card position. And talking about the Chiefs, this leads me into my next discussion. Titans annihilating the Chiefs 27-3. Patrick Mahomes a head injury, but playing through most of the entire game, he looks very disappointing. The defense looks very disappointing. 16 turnovers in his last 16 starts. So the big question is, can the Chiefs really regain to that past form they were the past 2 years? Because this guy, in my opinion, is the best overall quarterback in the league. But right now, they just look like they're struggling, and there looks to be a new face of the AFC this season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Of course, I'm a huge Titans fan, so I watched every single snap of this game yesterday. And to me, Patrick Mahomes, outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, has no help on this team right now. This offensive line, it reminded me of the way they looked in the Super Bowl. Just they were getting dominated by admittedly a Titans pass rush that hasn't been great this year. I mean, you got to remember, this is the same Titans team that let Zach Wilson and the New York Jets go up and down the field on them in the second half. It has to be extremely alarming to a Kansas City Chiefs fan to see the Tennessee Titans defense keep you out of the end zone for an entire game. And then obviously the Kansas City Chiefs defense, we've been saying it for a couple of weeks, they're just not very good. They're one of the worst in the entire league. And we knew that going up against Derrick Henry yesterday was going to be a tall task. And they actually played them pretty well. Outside of the Henry's passing touchdown yesterday, he didn't get in the end zone at all otherwise. And they held him to under 100 yards. But Ryan Tannehill played his best game of the year. He was on fire, getting the ball to Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. And some of the catches those guys are making were just awesome to watch. And, you know, if this Titans team continues to play like this, then it might be the Titans team I thought I was going to see in the preseason, because they're at 5-2 right now. They have a 2-game lead in a division, and they're going to play the Indianapolis Colts this week, and effectively a do-or-die game for the Colts, at least when it comes to the AFC South. Because if the Colts lose this week to the Tennessee Titans, the Titans have a 3-game lead heading into November and will have been swept by the Titans. So this is going to be an extremely fascinating game in Indianapolis this week. But I'll go to you, Oscar. Just what are your thoughts on the struggles of the Chiefs?
It's terrible. They're definitely not the team that made it to the Super Bowl last year. And I think I've been watching the news, and I've been watching that, and it sounds like a lot of people are struggling to understand what's going on with them. Obviously, they've had their injury, but Mahomes is not the quarterback that people expected to see this year, and he hasn't had the success that we all wanted him to have. So yeah, I hope he steps it up. We got to see, and a lot of you see a lot of the background. You have to wonder if the team dynamics is breaking down at this point of the season when you don't see the success that you want to see. It's easy to get distracted. As far as I understand, his brother and his girlfriend haven't made it in complete distractions. But when you start doing poorly, things like that start affecting the team dynamics. Things like that start affecting the locker room. So hopefully it doesn't get to that.
Yeah, I mean, not every dynasty is meant to last forever. And if you're Andy Reid right now, are you concerned that your dynasty is coming to an end? Is there a sunset for Andy Reid, Connor? I mean, because I would be starting to get concerned because, you know, Patrick Mahomes is still 26 years old. I was expecting the Chiefs to be a Super Bowl contender virtually every single season for the next 10 years. And there's a good chance they're not even going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, to kind of continue on to that point, something that I've been thinking about the past couple of days in regards to the Chiefs is how much it reminds me of the last couple of years that Mike McCarthy was the coach of the Green Bay Packers. You know, those teams, they kind of relied like way too much on Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams' talent to kind of anchor their team. You know, and it kind of fell apart for them. You know, when you're missing the playoffs, when Aaron Rodgers is your QB1, that's a problem. And I think that might be what happens with the Chiefs this season with Patrick Mahomes, probably the best quarterback in the entire league is their QB1. I mean, like he's got Kelce and Hill and what else, honestly, and the defense is absolutely terrible. It's like within the rankings of like the Falcons and the Jets. So it's definitely not something that could really help out your young stud quarterback and help them come back to a Super Bowl, which like in the preseason there was all this hype around them going 20-0 and this new revamped O-line, but I think they kind of spread their resources too thin in terms of the front office, spending too much on their top tier talent and not really spreading the money around in order to garner more talent on both sides of the ball to just make a more solid team.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see this Kansas City Chiefs offense continue to move forward. Of course, they are on the next Monday night game next week against the New York Giants, which that should be an interesting game because, the Giants have struggled this year, but they got a big win yesterday, and this Chiefs team is just absolutely reeling. So I feel like a loss to the Giants for the Chiefs might be a death blow for their season. But Leon, I know let's get into our next topic.
So last year's Chiefs were 14-2, and they were the top team in the league. But right now, on the other side of the ball, the top team in the league is the Arizona Cardinals. Fresh off a big 31-5 victory against the Houston Texans. Do the Cardinals have what it takes? How long do you think the Cardinals will take? How long do you think it could take till they get their next loss? Do you think the Cardinals could go 10-0, 11-0? What do you guys think?
Well, I was thinking that this week against the Packers was going to be one of their big chances, but obviously if you haven't been watching the news today, the Packers have had several players, including Devontae Adams, test positive for COVID, and it's possible they could have more players out before this game on Thursday night. It's not a lot of time to get those people healthy and back in NFL protocols to get them get that team to what they need in order to go to Arizona and beat the Cardinals. I mean, what's crazy is as successful as Aaron Rodgers has been as a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, they have not beaten the Cardinals in Arizona with Aaron Rodgers, including that famous 26-20 overtime game that ended with the Larry Fitzgerald 80-yard touchdown to win the game. Just looking at their schedule, I mean, maybe at the Niners. I mean, but then again, the Niners, they're not playing very well this year. They have a couple again against some sub-500 teams. I think the Rams on December 13th, that's going to be a primetime game, Monday Night Football in Arizona. I think that game's going to be really tough. They have to go to Dallas the second to last week of the season. I think those are their two main chances for losses. Outside of that, I just don't really see. I mean, they go to Detroit, and I know Detroit's 0-7 and not very good. But at the same time, they don't. They'd play very hard. I mean, they took Los Angeles to the brink yesterday. So outside of that, I don't really see this Cards team losing that much. I think they're going to cruise to their number one overall seed. Would you agree with that, Oscar?
I actually don't think they have a really good opponent until we get to see them go to the Rams or play the Rams at home. You're gonna have to play a team with an explosive offense and adjusted good defense, and we see that in the Rams. We know the 49ers. I don't think they do it. They're still disseminated. They're just getting back. They're getting a lot of their players back. The Seahawks, still trying to figure out defense. Bears, forget about it. That's gonna happen. But the Rams is an explosive offense and a really decent defense. They're gonna make you suffer for big mistakes. I don't think we have a chance of seeing the Cardinals that have so many weapons. I mean, they lost Max Williams. They go out there. They want to win. They go get Zach Ertz. You have wide receivers that are going to play. They have running backs that step up. I'm really impressed with the Cardinals. I have Kyler Murray in my fantasy team. I love it. He's the man. So, yeah, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be very stoppable this season.
I will say I'm kind of annoyed with the Cardinals in fantasy because I have Chase Edmonds, and despite him being a very efficient runner, he never gets touches in the red zone. Never. James Conner gets every single red zone touch for a running back on the Cardinals offense, and it's just absolutely frustrating to watch as a Chase Edmonds owner. But, let's talk about the Cardinals maybe going undefeated, and I seriously doubt it. 17-0 seems just nearly impossible with the parity in the league. And then also, you have to remember, if you look at Cliff Kingsbury's record, all the way back to the time he was the coach at Texas Tech into Arizona, his teams always take a deep dive in the second half. His teams are notorious for struggling in the second half of the season. Connor, do you think there's a chance, even with a relatively weak schedule, that Cliff Kingsbury could fall to the same fate again with the Arizona Cardinals, even with as good of a team as this team is?
I personally don't see it. I mean, I know that Cliff Kingsbury had a losing record at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes. And of course, these last 2 seasons kind of put him on the hot seat before, this great 7-0 start. But I just think this team is like way too stacked to, just fall flat on its face in the second half. I don't think that they'll, go 17-0. I think that's just kind of a ridiculous prediction. But that defense, that pass rush is really good. Chandler Jones has been playing well, and JJ Watt is still productive, even though he's kind of old. And that offense is just stacked with talent. That Zach Ertz trade happened last week, of course, and their receiving core is great. Kyler Murray is becoming an MVP candidate, and James Conner has been playing pretty well also. So I just don't see them falling on their face in the second half.
Yeah, it'll be certainly interesting to see what the Cardinals can do for the remainder of the season. But I'm going to throw it back to Leon because we got to talk about the Green Bay Packers, who are still chugging along at 6-1.
Yeah, the Packers, after that big loss to the Saints in Week 1, they've won their 6th straight game. Where do you guys see the Packers ending up in the NFC? Do you still see them making it back to the NFC Championship in the 3rd straight game?
Well, they're definitely winning the NFC North. So that's, goal one. I mean, the NFC North is a trash fire of a division outside of the Packers. The Vikings are just extremely inconsistent. The Bears have no offense. And the Lions, they're trying. They're poor hearts. They're trying, but they just can't get a win. So the Packers are going to win the NFC North. Now, what seed are they going to get? Obviously, the Cardinals are ahead of them. If they can somehow pull off a win in the desert this week, and that would be massive to try to get the number 1 overall seed. Obviously, the Bucs, they're sitting there with 1 loss. You have to fight with them for a seed. And then the Cowboys are also have only 1 loss. So, if you lose 4 or 5 games and end up like 12-5, you might be the 4 seed. I mean, that's how top heavy this NFC is. And if you end up the 4 seed, that could be the difference between you hosting a division round game and being a road team in a division round game. And just look at the Packers' record in road games recently in the playoffs. It's not very good. So I think they got to find a way to win some of these big games, including this game Thursday at Arizona, if they want to get back to the Super Bowl and give Aaron Rodgers his whole one last dance. Because that's what I've been comparing it to all year. To me, it's like Michael Jordan in 1998 with the Chicago Bulls. It's the one last dance with all the drama in the offseason. And they got to win games like this if they want to make that a reality. Connor, do you think that perhaps is a little too far of a comparison to compare this Packers team to that 98 Bulls team in terms of what it means to Aaron Rodgers' career and legacy?
I mean, I don't think it's too far a comparison in terms of how Aaron Rodgers views it. I mean, definitely, early in the season or before the season started, rather, Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers both posted pictures of, I think, Jordan and Pippen from back in those days on their Instagram stories. But in terms of talent, there's no way that I could compare this team to the 98 Bulls. Not a chance. It's even a question mark to see if they could even make it to the NFC Championship. Obviously, like you said, I think they're going to win the NFC North handily. But I would not be surprised if they were a 2nd round exit this year.
I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make out of the division round either. Do you agree with us, Oscar?
There's looking at the schedule, they have a lot of tough teams to beat. I mean, we know they have the Cardinals. The Vikings are an explosive team. The Rams are an explosive team. They're gonna have to show us how they perform against those people, those teams. But just like you said, the NFC is very competitive, and you're gonna have to step up and figure that out. But no, I hope they do better than that. 1st round exit is true because it is that competitive. But I think this is kind of what we expect from Aaron Rodgers. This is what we expect to see throughout all the years that we've seen him play. And you know he's going to step up. You know he's going to be competitive. I can't tell you how frustrating defense must be when he pulls those trick plays on those 4th and shorts, and a lot of teams fall for it. And he steps up and he makes a deep throw or he makes a quick run, and teams fall for it all the time. So don't count out Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like you guys are talking a lot like his first week in the NFL, and don't sleep on that guy. He's a champ.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith says he's a bad man. You can't sleep on Aaron Rodgers. And that defense also did play pretty well yesterday, although they were in a bend not break situation. If you didn't watch that game, Washington blew, I believe, 4 different chances inside the 20-yard line and inside the red zone. Just absolutely horrible execution, because Tyler Heineke and Antonio Gibson were able to go up and down the field, just were not able to score. Leon, are you the only one in here that thinks the Packers are a Super Bowl contender?
Just before getting to that, big shout out to Minecraft Samurai. He seems like a big fan of ours with his comments.
Heck yeah. Minecraft Samurai.
But,
definitely share the show with your friends. Let's get some more people in this comment section.
Yeah, but I do think the Packers with the NFC North, do I think they could repeat against the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship? I think the Buccaneers are a lock for that spot, but there are the Cowboys in there also. And I think, in my opinion, I would say the AFC is more competitive than the NFC this season. So it might be easier this season for the Packers to get a higher seed in the NFC. And my last analysis that we should all go over, like another big news story, Jamar Chase, 8 catches, 201 yards, and 1 score against the Baltimore Ravens and their solid defense. So will Jamar Chase even break Justin Jefferson's rookie record of 1,400 yards? Guys, thoughts?
I mean, I think most definitely, especially with his already established connection with Joe Burrow from LSU. It's already carried over, with the Bengals. I think Jamar Chase has more than proven himself to be the wide receiver 1 in his draft class. So I definitely would not be surprised if he broke Justin Jefferson's record and went to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who drafted Jamar Chase in the 7th round of his fantasy football draft, I mean, what an excellent draft pick that was. I am beyond the moon. I mean, everyone in the offseason was telling me this guy can't catch a ball. I mean, these people, I mean, obviously, I know everyone's not a big college football fan. I'm from Tennessee. That's just a part of being from the South. I watched this dude a ton of LSU with him, Justin Jefferson, and Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that whole crew down there that won a national title. Jamar Chase was just torching SEC defenses left and right. And I knew at the moment that he got reconnected with Joe Burrow, that they were going to be electric. And obviously there was a lot of debate of whether or not they should have selected P.I. Sewell, who's doing well in Detroit as an offensive lineman. And they still have some deficiencies at the offensive line for the Bengals. That makes me truly question whether or not they can actually be a championship contender. The building blocks are there for this team to be a contender in the years to come. I still think they're too young yet to truly be a championship contender. But hey, that win yesterday was as impressive as a win as you'll see all season. Oscar, what's your thoughts?
I think the Bengals are doing great. I think, like you said, they're a young team that's stepping up and doing what they can to show what they can do. And just that win that they had yesterday versus the Ravens was astounding. That was like they're coming to, like they're at the party. They've arrived here to mix it up with the other teams. And the Ravens was the team to do it. Jamar Chase, I'm a big fan of Jamar Chase, Nick. Just I drafted him. And I got nervous the first couple games before the season started. All the reports that he wasn't seeing the ball, that he wasn't doing this, wasn't doing that. And I was happy to see him on that first game. He let us all know, hey, this guy's NFL level, and he's going to continue doing it. This team has all the pieces. We got to see CJ Small also step up and play really well. This team, like I said, like you said, I agree with you very much. They have the pieces that they need, and they could definitely make an impact. They're in the lead right now for the AFC North. They're going to be good. If not this season, definitely the following seasons coming up.
Yeah, it's going to truly be a fascinating race to the AFC North. So I'm listening back to Leon for the last word of this particular segment before we kind of move into some broad predictions.
So that was my news analysis for the season. Now, as we move on, I wanted to ask you guys, who are your MVP predictions as of right now? I'll start with Kyler Murray. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray definitely. Obviously, this MVP award has turned into the quarterback on the best team, and obviously, as long as the Cardinals are the best team, Kyler Murray is going to be up there in that conversation. But for me, when you take a look around the landscape, and this is not just from a position of bias, give me Derrick Henry. Look, I understand this is a quarterback award. I get it, and Derrick Henry will probably not win the MVP award. But if you've watched the Tennessee Titans this year, the Titans would be 2-5 or 3-4 without Derrick Henry. The Titans' whole offense revolves around Derrick Henry, whether it's him dominating on the ground or defenses having to key so much on Derrick Henry that opens up Julio Jones and A.J. Brown downfield for Ryan Tannehill to find in the play action game. And then yesterday he goes out there, and I really feel like Mike Vrabel did this as kind of a troll to MVP voters, goes out and throws a touchdown on the goal line. It kind of as a point of, oh, Derrick Henry can throw a touchdown too. Give me Derrick Henry for MVP. There's a reason why Nissan Stadium in Nashville yesterday was chanting MVP after that touchdown. Connor, who is your MVP pick?
I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson. As we saw like early on in the season, a lot of the top running backs on the Ravens were hurt pretty bad, left on IR for the rest of the season, and Lamar had a lot more on his shoulders. So he really needed to step up, and he did. Like he's been playing even better than I thought he would. Of course, his passing game has been upgraded quite a bit. They added Sammy Watkins in the offseason, and he's been playing pretty well. But I think that Lamar Jackson's basically been carrying this offense. I mean, one example that I can say to prove that Lamar has been carrying this team is that Colts game. He threw for like 400 yards, completed almost all of his passes. I'm gonna say this: if that team didn't have Lamar, then honestly, I don't think they'd make the playoffs. But with Lamar, they're gonna win the AFC North and could potentially go to the AFC Championship game. Like that's a crazy amount of. It's a crazy level that Lamar's been playing at this season. He's been playing even better than his MVP season in 2019. And that's saying something. So I think that he could definitely win the MVP this year.
Yeah, so just want to go a quick update on the Monday night game. DK Metcalf just absolutely torched Marshawn Lattimore on, I believe it was about a 50-yard touchdown. I didn't say exactly what was the exact yard amount, but the Seahawks take the early lead. It's about to be 7-0 with about 10 minutes left in the first quarter. So if you have DK Metcalf in your fantasy team, you should be absolutely celebrating right now. But Oscar, who is your MVP pick?
84-yard touchdown reception, Nick. Awesome. Well, MVP pick is really hard because a lot of times it like kind of like what Nick said. It's kind of like the best quarterback on the best team. Or I think you might have said that, Nick. I'm sorry, not kind of. But if we're looking at that, there's other quarterbacks having explosive seasons. There's Justin Herbert. There's Josh Allen back down in the Buffalo Bills, a dual threat kind of just like Kyler Murray. And don't sleep on Tom Brady. I see you, Minecraft Samurai. Tom Brady, he's still the truth. He's still coming in every week. He's still putting up big numbers. There's a lot of great quarterbacks this season that are stepping up for the teams and are doing great things that they've done in the past season. And I think Lamar Jackson's doing great, but unfortunately, he's got a lot of losses. He has a lot of injuries. He has to cover up a lot of gaps that his team hasn't given him. And because it's a run-first team, it puts him on like the back burner for a lot of things that he wants to do because he doesn't get to be as explosive as all these other quarterbacks that get to throw the ball more often and show off skills on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I think for me, Kyler Murray's a big up there, and Tom Brady is probably a second choice, I think, just because of what he continues to do in his consistency year after year. And he's doing it this year. He won a Super Bowl last year. He's coming back, I think, again for it this year.
And also shout out to Tom Brady for throwing his 600th touchdown pass yesterday. That's an unbelievable record. I doubt we're going to see any quarterbacks in the near future come even close to that. And also shout out to the Bucs fan who had to give that game ball back. I mean, I couldn't imagine just how devastating that was. But Leon, I know you've got another question you would like to pose to us.
Yeah. Do you guys even think, I might have said this before, but I'll say it again. Do you guys even think the Chiefs could even make the wild card this season? I'm not even sure at this point. Like, is there a new face in the AFC, like with the Chargers, with the Ravens, the Bills? It's getting more and more competitive. I think the Super Bowl matchup is going to be very different than what it was predicted to be before the season.
I just, not with that defense and not with that offensive line. I think when you take a look at their upcoming schedule, they still got to play the Packers. They go to the Raiders. They got the Cowboys. They play the Raiders twice. They have to go to the Chargers. They play the Steelers. Go to Cincinnati. If they don't turn this around soon, are they even going to have a winning record? That's a legit conversation. And this might only be like an 8-9 or 9-8 team. And in this AFC, even with a 7th spot, I just don't think that's going to get it done, to be honest. What do you think, Oscar?
I think it's hard with football because you only play so many games. And they're in a division and they're not leading their division. 3-2 is kind of middle of the pack. You got to make up a lot of ground, and you got to hope that the Raiders, of all teams, I mean, I don't think anybody expect that. You got to expect the Raiders to somehow implode after they've overcome so much already, so much movement from their coaches, injuries within their team. They're going on all cylinders, and I think Chiefs got a lot of work cut out for them. I don't know that they make it to the playoffs this year. It might be. Hey, let's reset. Let's figure out what we're going to do. Maybe they get another couple pieces that help secure their stuff for next year, for this next season.
Honestly, firing John Gruden might be the best thing the Raiders have done. Like they look a lot better without Gruden. Maybe it's just the distractions that were off the field. So I don't know. The Raiders right now look better than the Chiefs, and those will be some interesting games. Connor, can the Chiefs make the playoffs?
Right now, I don't see it. I think the wild card spots in the AFC are going to go to the Browns, the Bengals, and the Raiders. Not in respective order, by the way. But yeah, I think they're like the third best team in their division. So it's going to be quite a grind if they want to secure a wild card playoff spot. I think they're going to definitely have to reset after their bye week, and definitely change up their defensive game plan quite a bit. And also, I don't know, like Patrick Mahomes has got to be much safer with the ball, start taking care of it more. It's like I said, it's going to be a grind. I really don't believe in this Chiefs team to make the playoffs. And if they do, I don't think they're going to be going to the Super Bowl for the third year in a row.
Yeah, I think there'll be a new AFC representative for sure. I'll throw it back to you, Leon. Your thoughts on the Chiefs and the next question you'd like to pose to us all.
Just really disappointed with the Chiefs' performance. I predicted the same exact Super Bowl for this year, Chiefs and Bucks. I couldn't really think of an idea of who would win, but all that money spent on Mahomes, you think that he would want to prove that he could get to that even higher level of football. A lot of people were even thinking, like, if he won the Super Bowl last season, could he be chasing Brady's so-called GOAT status? So outside of Hill and Kelsey, what we were talking about earlier, he doesn't really have much help on offense and not much on defense. So can he really get back to the playoffs at all? I am wishing the best for him, but I don't really know if he could even make it back to the wild card with the Chiefs. And I do want to hear more about his head injury from Oscar with the injury report.
Absolutely. All right, let's take one more question before moving on to the next injury report. And I don't know. Let's ask the panel here. What team do we think is going to end up finishing last? I think this is an interesting debate. Who's going to get the number one overall pick? Considering that we're not sure exactly who the number one overall prospect is going to be in this next draft. I know a lot of people are pointing to Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. Quarterbacks seem kind of sketchy, although maybe Matt Corral from Ole Miss is starting to become the name for a top QB prospect. Obviously, Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh also is potentially a top number one prospect, which, by the way, as a Tennessee Vols fan, I've gotten to watch both of those quarterbacks beat my team this year in Neyland. But who do we think is going to end up with that number one pick? Because, I mean, the Lions are the last winless team, but I think they're far from the worst team right now. I think the Houston Texans seem like they're destined to be the last place team. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, I think I'll go with Texans too. Go ahead, Connor.
If Tyrod comes back soon, I don't think that the Texans will be the dead last team, because we saw what he could do, in that Jaguars game. And I mean, it was against the Jaguars, but he still played really well. Obviously Tyrod has limitations. That's what you're getting with a bridge QB. But I don't think he's bad as a lot of people think he is. And Davis Mills was not ready to lead an NFL offense this season. And, obviously he's proven that over these past couple games. If Davis Mills is the starter for the rest of the season, I could definitely see them, winning the first overall pick. But if Tyrod comes back, I could see the Lions being the worst team in the NFL.
I mean, I'm not even going to go with either the Lions or the Texans. I'm going to go with the New York Jets. I would really say that it's like painful to watch their football games. Zach Wilson struggled and he got hurt. Mike White came in, but there was not really much success in that offense. And to be honest, I'm even surprised at how they were able to beat the Titans. So I don't really know if they could get another win this season. It might just be 1-16 for them and find another number 1 overall pick. I do think Zach Wilson can develop, but this team is really struggling as a whole.
I think I agree with Leon. I think the 3 bottom teams are the Lions, and even though they're winless yet, we see that they got chops, they can play, they got drive. I'm really impressed with their head coach. It seems like he motivates his team, and they're definitely trying to play for him. With the Texans, it doesn't even sound like they're willing to even. I don't know if they've heard any trades for Watson that'll help them grow and actually be able to compete this year. But the Jets, with Zach Wilson's injury, it puts them in a really hard situation. They don't have any quarterbacks really to fill in his position and make it to be competitive this year. So I think I agree with Leon. I think the Jets are definitely in the front runners to be the last team for the season.
Yeah, I mean, losing 54-13 in an NFL game that's unacceptable. I don't care how much in a rebuild you are. That's just terrible, especially to another rebuilding Patriots team. But thank you, Leon, for some of those top stories and some of these questions after this week 7, and we'll definitely we'll get you back in here throughout the rest of the show. All right, but unfortunately, with the action comes numerous injuries, some with big consequences. We'll have an injury report. Here's Oscar Arango, and then we're just going to kind of discuss it afterwards.
All right. Thanks, Nick. We're going to start off with the Browns. They lost Donovan Peoples-Jones before the game even started with a groin injury. He didn't get to play. I haven't seen any reports on him. But with him, Jarvis Landry got more reps, and Odell Beckham, unfortunately, it was a disappointment in a game that was primed for him to step up and do great. And unfortunately, he just found another way to disappoint. The Patriots, we saw an injury to Jonnu Smith. He suffered from a shoulder injury. And we saw Hunter Henry step up and get a big day from there. So we'll see how that goes. And with the Dolphins, Malcolm Brown, who's also a backup running back, suffered from a quad injury. He'll be out for 1 or 2 weeks. The starting running back for their team is Myles Gaskin, and we don't expect much changes going on there because of that. With the Eagles, Miles Sanders suffered a big injury. He is their top guy. We saw Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell step up for him. It seems like Kenneth Gainwell will be the lead guy over Boston Scott. Boston Scott's a smaller running back, kind of more of a scat back type of running back. If Miles Sanders misses more time because of that ankle sprain, which typically take 1 or 3 weeks, depending how bad it is, Kenneth Gainwell will be the one who benefits from it. And most interesting, not the most intriguing, but I think the most consequential loss for the Jets was Zach Wilson's quarterback. Zach Wilson, who is their quarterback, his knee injury kind of sets them back. He might be out with that knee injury 2 to 4 weeks, depending if it's a sprain or if it's a fracture. Obviously, that's much more serious. He might miss the season for it. I've yet to see which way that injury is going. But it seems like Mike White, who was the backup quarterback, will step up for him. And I think we just got a report earlier today. Joe Flacco just got signed with the Jets. So I want to pose a question. How do you guys think that'll fit Joe Flacco with the Jets and the other pieces that they have available there? Do we expect any success to come out of the Jets after I think they're going to be last for the season. What do you guys think?
I agree. Well, it's I mean, Joe Flacco, he hasn't been good in at least 5 years. He just isn't what he was in 2012. And I think that honestly there's some better options on the market that the Jets could have gone after. I mean, Cam Newton was still a starting quarterback last year. Yeah, I know he wasn't very good last year, but at the very least, considering his mobility, he can maybe do something behind that offensive line, because that offensive line is basically non-existent in New York, and it obviously has gotten Zach Wilson into the situation. And I think, if there's even a chance of rushing him back after 4 weeks could further injure that knee, then as a Jets, you got to do the responsible thing and hold him out the rest of the year and just wait until you've got a better line in front of him to bring him back. I mean, just look at what happened to Joe Burrow last year. He gets hurt in the middle of the season after a decent start. Now he's back and is playing much, much better. You know, NFL quarterbacks tend to take a big jump from week 1 to year 1 to year 2. And, you know, at this point, I think the Jets, you're basically throwing in the towel. And you're just going to try to do what you can do. Obviously, Joe Flacco, I just don't see how this is going to work for the Jets. What about you, Connor?
I mean, like you said, Joe Flacco is trash, if I'm being honest. I definitely think that he fits the system in New York well. He probably fits it better than Cam, who's, you know, more of a dual threat quarterback. Definitely more upside with him in terms of with Newton in terms of you know, his ability to make plays on his feet rather than his passing game. You know, I don't think this Jets team is going to do anything. Joe Flacco is just kind of going to be like you know, some duct tape, you know, on the wound, if that makes sense. But you know, he's not going to lead this team to victory, really.
I mean, it's not even the main brand duct tape. This is like the off-brand stuff you get at Dollar Tree. I mean, it's just it isn't gonna work. Yeah, looking at some of these other injuries you talked about, Oscar. One that kind of interests me is the Eagles. This backfill of Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. I think those are two actually pretty underrated and talented running backs. I think especially Gainwell this year has done some good things as a rookie, and it'll be interesting to see how they gel with Jalen Hurts. Because I think Miles Sanders, to me, even though he definitely has a lot of talent and has had his moments, I just don't think, one, he's been healthy enough to really be great. And two, I don't think, honestly, he hasn't been playing that much better than some of these other running backs. And it makes you question exactly what his value is. Because when you look at running backs, outside of a guy like Derrick Henry or Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey, the value of running backs goes down significantly. So I think it'll be very interesting to see if Gainwell or Scott can gain a permanent foothold maybe as a top dog in that backfield for Philadelphia. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think Gainwell gets the first dibs on that. He's kind of been the prime backup for Sanders throughout the season. And he's like I said, he's the bigger running back. He's kind of the ground and pound running back. But what's interesting is he actually got a lot of catches over Boston Scott, who was like the original scat back for the Eagles before Gainwell got on there. So I think Gainwell gets the first crack at it. And if he doesn't step up, then Boston Scott will be the guy. But Gainwell's been the top backup, and I think he'll be the guy that fills the position until Miles Sanders gets back.
Yeah, so let's kind of shift on over to fantasy football because obviously injuries not fun to talk about, but fantasy football it's fun to talk about. Although I took my first loss this week, sad, it's unfortunate, but who stood out to you?
Well, we got 5 guys, Nick. Tua, with quarterback with the Miami Dolphins. He had 32 passes for 291 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on his second game since coming back from his injury. Cooper Kupp, awesome, having an awesome season coming back from last season. And he's got 10 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. In a close game with Lions, they kept going to him. They kept feeding the ball. So that's really good to see. Joe Burrow, we've talked about him and Jamar Chase. Those 2 guys made our list today. Joe Burrow goes for 116 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception against the Ravens. So, like I said, like a great what's to be expected is supposed to be a very good team. He gets 27 points, fantasy points for his owner. Matt Stafford, again, Renaissance guy. He's reliving. It's like the rebirth of his career. 28 passes, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was the one feeding Cooper Kupp the ball. Did great. Jamar Chase, also same fitting from the Joe Burrow connection, 8 catches, 201 yards, a touchdown against the Baltimore Ravens. So those 5 guys are, I think, our top performers in standard scoring. And some surprise performances that we got to see. Denarius Johnson, we touched on that from last Thursday. Backup running back. Nobody expected that what he did. 146 yards, 1 touchdown, an undrafted player. CJ Uzuma, tight end with the Bengals, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great performance from him. And then number 3, my hometown New York Giants defense. They stopped the Panthers. Only 3 points. They had 6 sacks against Sam Darnold and 1 interception. They got their owner 17 points. So I think they did really good. They probably did better than anybody on the Giants offense, I think, besides Jones.
Yeah, that's actually a question I do kind of want to ask y'all when we look at the Panthers. the Panthers offense, just how it's falling apart is with Sam Darnold at quarterback. There's trade rumors that they might go after Deshaun Watson now. Should we be streaming any defense that plays Carolina now? Because they just obviously they don't have Christian McCaffrey back yet. He still is a few weeks away from being back, and Sam Darnold just isn't it. I'm sorry. Like we were all hoping that maybe he would have a Ryan Tannehill-esque redemption arc in Charlotte. I just don't see it happening. What do y'all think about streaming a defense every single week against Carolina?
I mean, Sam Darnold turned back into a pumpkin these past couple weeks, so I don't think it'll be too hard to kind of construct a defense that'll adapt to Sam Darnold's game, and really play against his weaknesses. I mean, I really don't know what else there is to say. I think the Panthers are definitely going to move on from Darnold after this season.
Yeah, he's definitely seeing ghosts again just in time for Halloween. It's just mind-boggling. I really thought he would take the next step over because we look at Joe Brady, what he's done in the past, what he did at LSU, what he did last year with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, this has been a really good offense, and it isn't working with Sam Darnold. And I think the Panthers are going to have to go probably just drafting a quarterback, unless you can land Deshaun Watson. But even then, that's a risk because what's his legal situation going to be? Is he going to be able to avoid, jail time or suspension by the league? It's definitely a risk. But obviously, if he can remain out of trouble, I mean, that would be, something that would elevate the Carolina Panthers to a contender immediately. If they got a healthy and productive Deshaun Watson that can stay out of trouble. But Oscar, who are your waiver wire picks for week 8? And I can't believe we're almost at week 8. I mean, we're at basically for the halfway point of the season, and the trade deadline for many leagues is coming up here in a few weeks.
Yeah. I got a couple guys here. A couple guys we already talked about. So Kenneth Gainwell just going down with the ankle injury. He might be able to get some more reps week 8, and he might be able to help his managers depending how desperate you are, and you need a guy to fill in for a couple weeks. During these 5 weeks, he will be the guy. Rashad Penny, this is a guy that I feel like I've been chasing for the last couple of years. I can't figure out how to get him on my team, trying to trade him. But Chris Carson is hurt. Alex Collins, he has a groin injury. He doesn't seem to get the confidence from the Seahawks as much. He's done today. Hopefully he does well. I would say watch today's game, see if he should be the guy. If Rashad Penny does well today, he should be on your radar. He's really good. He's very explosive when he is healthy. The only issue is he's never managed to be healthy. He was hurt all last season. He's supposed to come back this year. He got hurt again. So we'll see how he does. Russell Gage also coming back from an injury. He played a great role in the offense. He had 4 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. The Falcons are a really explosive offense behind Matt Ryan, so definitely somebody to consider. Alan Lazard with the Packers. Also, he's getting a little bit more touches behind Devontae Adams. He had 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. So we're seeing him get more involved. Definitely somebody to think about. Again, anybody who's in an offense that's explosive, somebody you want to look into. CJ Azuma, also, he had a blow-up game with the Bengals. Hopefully he continues this. So if you want to have him on your bench and maybe stream him throughout the season, he might be a good guy to look into. So those are our 5 top guys tonight. We'll see how if anybody pops up from the Saints or the Seahawks game besides Rashad Penny.
Yeah, and one guy I want to personally throw out there, the backup tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders, Foster Moreau. Obviously, Darren Waller, he went down with an injury on Saturday, got ruled out right before the game on Sunday. So Foster Moreau shows up, has 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, which is 18 points in the PPR league, 12 points in the standard PPR league, 15.5 PPR. That's, obviously really, really good for a tight end. That would have won me the game yesterday because that's what lost me in my fantasy game, is not having Darren Waller. And I went for, I believe it was OJ Howard, and he only had 2 points. It just wasn't enough. But I wish I had chosen the backup instead of Foster Moreau, because the Raiders are going to get the ball to their tight end no matter what, even if it isn't Darren Waller on the game. Of course, they have a bye week this week, so hopefully Waller will be healthy when they return after their bye week. Any comments on any of these waiver wire picks?
Yeah, just a big comment on the staff pick. Like, Derek Carr was almost perfect. I think he was like 31 for 34, and one of the incompletions was an interception, but he really just carved up the Eagles defense. And They did have to fire their head coach, or he resigned, John Gruden, a couple of weeks ago, but they're 2-0 without him. So Derek Carr, he was talking about in an NFL interview how like he is stepping up more as a leader. And we will see like how the Raiders will do, because I think they could make it very interesting for the AFC playoffs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation of whether or not Derek Carr is making that jump from good to great quarterback. And hey, if you continue to do 31 of 34 games like that, you're going to be a great quarterback in overtime. I mean, the Eagles' defense isn't great, so I want to see what he does against some better defenses. I mean, he struggled a couple weeks ago in Chicago, but I do think a lot of that goes back to just how much of a distraction John Gruden was at the time. So I think the Raiders have no distractions now, and they are able to really focus on being a really good football team. So it is time for everyone's favorite part of the week. It's time to make some money. Connor, what are some opening matchups you're looking at, some opening spreads? Who should our viewers bet on to make some of that sweet, sweet money, whether you're in a state that allows you to bet or not?
All right. The first match that I'm going to talk about that people should focus on is this matchup where the Washington football team is going to play the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 44 at the moment. Washington's defense, as we all know, it's been one of the biggest disappointments this season so far, and their offense has been pretty average. While the Broncos' 3-0 start was mirage, their offense has been absolutely terrible, and their defense is pretty overhyped. So I'm going to go with Washington on this one. I don't know how they're not favored. I think Heineke is going to do just enough to improve this team's record to 3-5. They're not a good team, but the Broncos are much worse, in my opinion. The next matchup that I'm going to talk about is the Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Titans are favored by 0.5 point, and the over-under is 49. Now, the Titans recently pulled off upsets over the Bills and the Chiefs, with their offense firing on all cylinders and their defense steadily improving as well. While the Indianapolis Colts have found their footing over the past couple weeks, and Carson Wentz has been playing a lot better than he has as of late. Now, with the Titans on a hot streak in how they're trying to defend their AFC South title, I think they're going to win this one pretty handily. Though the Colts have been playing pretty good football over these past couple weeks, I think the Titans are just the better team overall. In the next matchup that I'm going to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Detroit Lions. The Eagles are favored by 3.5 points, and the over-under is 48.5. Now, this season, both teams are rebuilding. They're both teams in transition with a lot of question marks on both their rosters, especially in the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts hasn't been playing all that well in his first full season as a starter in Philly. And Jared Goff hasn't been playing all that well either. While the Lions are 0-7 right now, I'm going to predict that they're going to leave with a win. I think they've played pretty competitively against good teams, as we've seen these past couple weeks. And this is easily the worst team that they've played so far and will possibly play all year. They've got to win at some point, right? Now, this last matchup that I'm going to talk about is probably the least contested out of all of these matchups that I'm going to talk about today. It's going to be the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 13.5 points, and the over-under is 47.5. Now, the Bills are coming off a bye week after a tough loss in Tennessee and are extra motivated to come back better than ever. And what better way to bounce back than to play the 1-6 Dolphins, where there's a lot of question marks surrounding that team right now. I'm a homer, as you guys might know, but I think the Bills are going to win, and they're going to cover. And those are my 4 Week 8 matchups.
All right, so just take a look at these 4 matchups. Obviously, the one that I'm thinking about here, Titans-Colts. A game that I said earlier is probably going to determine whether or not the AFC South is a competitive battle. Obviously, it would seem disrespectful on its face that the Titans are only 0.5 point favorites. I'm just telling you from a Titans perspective, I'm always nervous when we play the Indianapolis Colts. We have like a 6-20 record against them in the last decade. Of course, most of that came with Andrew Luck, because famously the Titans never beat Andrew Luck, and they've done a lot better since. But I really think that's going to be an interesting and tight game. One game that's really interesting to me that's not on this list. The Bengals at the Jets. The Bengals are only -8.5 points. That seems to me like a lock that they should cover that. What do you guys think about that? Because I mean, I can't believe for as much of a turmoil as the Jets are right now, they're going to literally have to throw in a Joe Flacco at quarterback this week. And the Bengals coming off a fraction of Baltimore. I mean, maybe the bettors think they're going to have a letdown after that game, but I really think these Bengals are just that much better than the Jets right now.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to win convincingly, and they're going to cover. This is a Jets team that, while they did beat the Titans, they were shut out by the Broncos. And that's just a mark of an absolutely terrible team. And they haven't really shown much improvement besides that one win, which was the only reason why they won, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, was because A.J. Brown and Julio Jones were out. And you're rolling it with Joe Flacco as your starter. There's no way that I could see the Jets winning this game. So yeah, Bengals win and cover, easy.
Yeah, like what Connor said, it's an easy win for the Bengals. Just another W to add on to their schedule. The Jets are just atrocious this year. They really are painful to watch, and there are some prospects like Elijah Moore is a noticeable player that will be a rookie that will improve. Jamison Crowder also, but being from New York, of course I'm a Giants fan, but I don't necessarily root for the Jets, but I want to see them win too. I really do. So where are they going to look to find improvement? Are they going to start in free agency? Are they going to find a new GM? Are they going to draft better? There are just so many questions around this football team.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I look at the Jets, I think they have a decent and underrated receiving core. I like their front seven, where they have to improve. They got to get some running backs back there. They got to get an offensive line, and they got to get a much better secondary. And then the quarterback, Zach Wilson, he's just got to be able to stay healthy, and he's got to be able to grow. Because I think he has potential. I don't know if he's going to be a great quarterback, but you can't destroy him early. And that's what the New York Jets do time after time after time. So I hope for his sake, they're able to build enough support around him, not just at the receiver position, to allow him to move forward. One more game I want to bring up that's not on this list. The Los Angeles Rams at the Houston Texans. The Rams are 14-point favorites on the road. But as we saw this past week, Detroit kind of took them to the limit. Now, I think the Lions are way better than the Texans. But is this another game where the Rams are kind of, even though they're winning games, they're kind of seesawing a little bit. Even though I think they are much better than the Texans from top to bottom, if you look at their talent, are we starting to get worried that the Rams are playing down to their talent a little too much, or down to their opponents a little too much?
I mean, I think the case with that Lions game was that the Lions were desperate for a win, and Dan Campbell is a very aggressive coach. That team's gonna fight for their coach. Whether they're 0-7 or they're 7-0. And I still see the Rams winning and covering this game, especially comparing the Texans and the Lions. Obviously, the Texans have a win, but their quarterback's even worse than Jared Goff, and their coach, like David Culley. No other team in the NFL was looking for David Culley when they were looking for a head coach. This past offseason. I just don't really see that he could lead the Texans to many points against this Rams defense. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to pick off Davis Mills at least twice, and Aaron Donald's going to wreck him too. So I definitely see the Rams covering.
I mean, honestly, it kind of that hire by the Texans kind of reminds me of some college football hires, namely someone like a Matt Luke at Ole Miss from a few years ago after the whole Hugh Freeze scandal, and they were on NCAA probation. No one else wanted that job, so they kind of had to hire their tight ends coach and just kind of ride it out for a few years before they were able to go out and get Lane Kiffin. That's exactly what this reminds me of with Houston. I think they're just trying to ride it out with David Culley, just try to be as competitive as possible, and then whenever you get that roster turnover, whenever you get a new quarterback, then that's when you go out and get an actual head coach. But thank you, Connor, for that sports gambling segment. And now it is time to wrap up the show with the players of the week. Every person on the show will give one player of the week. We'll start with you, Leon. who do you believe is your player of the week?
Like I brought up before, Jamar Chase, 8 catches, 201 yards, 1 touchdown. For a rookie receiver to dominate the league like that is insane. And 200 yards receiving as a rookie is just unbelievable. I do think he will be the offense rookie of the year. And he's already a wide receiver 1 in the league. So just think about the impact he's going to have going years forward. Like, could the Bengals even make a Super Bowl run in a couple of years? Joe Burrow is developing. The whole offense just looks amazing.
Oscar, who's your player of the week?
I actually chose Ernest Johnson, the Browns. I think it's very much a feel good story. This guy kind of comes out of nowhere. You kind of see the Browns, how they have like a wealth of talent in the backfield. There's Ernest Johnson. He was signed off the street pretty much, the Alliance American Football, and brought into the Browns. And he's grown. He's been able to step up and do something in great performance for them. He's 146 yards, 1 touchdown. He's filling in for these guys, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, guys that are going to be really good. He may not get this opportunity again. I'm happy we got to see him do it, and maybe that means something better for him next season. So, yeah, Ernest Johnson.
Connor, who's your player of the week?
So to continue on the Bengals hype train, I'm going to go Joe Burrow. He absolutely killed in Baltimore this Sunday, throwing for 416 yards, going 23 for 28 passing attempts, 3 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 113.5. He's been making strides and really improving quite a bit in his sophomore season, even more than I expected him, especially behind his O-line. I think him and his connection with Jamar Chase, like I said earlier, is going to help lead the Bengals to a wild card spot. And this game was an absolute statement win for the Bengals. Probably one of the most important games that this Bengals team has played in quite some time, honestly.
All right, now we'll wrap it up with my player of the week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans caught Tom Brady's 600 touchdown yesterday. And actually, now it's not his only one. He caught not 1, not 2, but a hat trick. 3 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 76 yards. In addition to that hat trick, he's absolutely dominant. Welcome to the 2021 season, Mike Evans. This dominance has been long awaited. Unfortunately, that also helped beat me yesterday in fantasy. But hey, I recognize greatness when you can see it. And Mike Evans certainly was that yesterday. And hey, if he can continue to play like that, that just only makes Tom Brady that much stronger. It makes that Bucs offense that much stronger. And we'll see if he can keep it up moving forward for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But with that being said, that's a wrap. Thank you once again for watching the Instant Review podcast. We will see you again next week when we recap all NFL-based news, injury reports, fantasy predictions, and much, much more after Week 8 of NFL action. For Leon Terrion, Connor Kennedy, and Oscar Arango, my name is Nicholas Hill. Thank you for listening to the Instant Review podcast. Take care.
Thank you.